Hello and welcome back to another episode of More Than a Business Live. My name is Mitch Case. I am the proud co-founder of my wife and I's business, More Than a Meal, where we help organizations strengthen their most valued relationships by showing gratitude, appreciation, and empathy one meal at a time. We are coming to you guys every single Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Time with the goal to highlight amazing leaders and companies that run their business just a little bit different, which truly makes them more than a business. So I'm really excited for our next guest. I get to dive back into my old industry of commercial HVAC around the hydronic systems, water systems, and Adam can probably nerd out a little bit on the water side of things, but we're going to stay focused on his company itself, which is Jaytech Water Solutions. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Adam on the show. Adam, welcome, man.
Thanks, Mitch. Greatly appreciate it. Big supporter of what you've got going on for all the businesses and the entrepreneurship that you have there and the mentality. So glad to be a part of what you have. So
Well,
thank
I
you.
can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I know as soon as we had our first conversation, it just made a lot of sense to bring you on this show, just with all the things you cover, and then also like getting back to dive into the HVAC world from the water treatment perspective was something I always leaned heavily on my partners, which one of those was with Jaytech many years ago, 3 or 4 years ago at this point. But Adam, go ahead and tell us a little bit about what Jaytech Water Solutions is, what you guys do, and then kind of talk about your role specifically from a high level, and then we'll jump into it.
Absolutely. So Jaytech is a privately held company, family-oriented business founded in 1977 here up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And obviously, me being in St. Louis, that means that we've grown quite a bit since then. But what they do is industrial, and we do is industrial water treatment. We service a lot of cooling towers, boilers, industrial process systems, food plant production, wood mills, hospitals, school districts, anything that has steam and needs for Jaytech in there where we can make it work. I'm currently the general manager at Jaytech. I previously served roles as just sales and service when I first started out, not knowing anything about it, getting thrown out into the streets and saying, go do this. And then I moved my way into a manager's position. Luckily enough, I had 4 years or so of experience with that. And then there was a need within the organization for a technical director. So they pushed me up into that role because once a water nerd, always a water nerd. So I figured I'd go hard and be nerd out as much as I could. And then I got lucky and realized that there was another gentleman who I had hired years before who was better at my current job than what I was doing. So we moved him into my position as building him up. And the company continued to invest in me and push me up into the general manager's position, also known as the integrator role for our organization.
Let's go. Yeah. It's funny you talk about it, like, once a water nerd, always a water nerd. I
Always.
feel like I've been out of the cooling tower world, which is primarily what I sold for now 3.5+ years, but I cannot stop looking up at buildings while I'm driving. My wife absolutely hates it, thinks we're going to kill ourselves one day from just driving around looking at rooftops, but it's essentially how I knew who to go talk to for about 10 years. So yeah, once in that industry, it's hard to turn it away. Before we jump into that impact story, I just want to shout to anybody that is watching. Go ahead and shoot where you're watching from, what platform you're on. We can't necessarily see that just from the indication that we see on our end. So go ahead and shoot that into the comments. And if you have any questions for myself or Adam as we dive into this conversation of being more than a business, we'll try and get those answered towards the end of the show. So, Adam, the way I always love to start this show is by talking about an impact story. So a story along the lines of something that, whether it's been you or Jaytech Water Solutions, has had a positive impact on a team member, a client, or even a community member.
Absolutely. So I've been with the organization for right around 9.5 years. And when we first started, we had 10 people roughly within the company, and we've almost tripled in growth since then, which is great. And, it's a testament to doing hard work, and you will grow if you follow through.
Sure.
But about halfway through my employment, the owners decided that they wanted to bring EOS into the organization, which is the Entrepreneurial Operations System. And the reason why we did, or why the ownership did that, is because our number one value, which we identified, as part of our vision and traction in our business plan, was servant leadership. I didn't know what servant leadership was. It was something new to me, and it took me months to try to figure out really what the definition was. But you really kind of make your own definition out of it once you start living it, because it's
Mm,
part of what you become. And it was one heck of a journey. Like I said, we've been doing it for 5 years, and it's been just like going to Six Flags, and it's a roller coaster. But it's not really just an impact for one person, because it's an impact for everybody who's in the organization, every department, all the way down from leadership to the managers to the front lines of people going out there running pinks and blues or shipping and receiving. Every department's got the ability, to have things addressed and held accountable. So being able to do that really has built a lot of, I've got a lot of business education, I guess you would say, really quickly through that, by instead of trying to learn it the hard way, in values. We set our values down, our vision, and we grew a lot faster. But the biggest thing about Jaytech, and the reason why is, it was decided at that time by the Jewell family, and the ownership, is that they want to build a company by building their people. And the only way to do that was for everybody to get on board and do the same thing. Find a ship and agree we're all going to go from point A to B. You're going to have certain roles, certain people who lead you and get you there, but being able to identify it and then figure out, okay, here's the seats that we've got, and here's the oars that we have. How do we hit the water with the paddles at the same speed, same tempo, same vision, same direction, same angle? Just like you watching a movie that recently came out about rowing, how do you get from point A to B as fast as possible? Everybody wants to do that in sales, right? And
Oh,
EOS
yeah.
has just absolutely leaps and bounds, and has taken it there. But it was really the basis of the servant leadership that really has, impacted me. I've seen it impact others. It was something in our vocabulary that I've heard of the word, didn't know what it was. Now I know what it is. I live by it, and I use it all the time, just as if it, it's second nature in my vocabulary. So being able to have the servant leadership was great. And it's really just a philosophy of the Jewell family that's now the company values. And EOS allowed us to lay that out for every employee to see. And we review it on a regular basis.
Servant leadership. I really, really, as I have started growing a business myself, like these are some of the things that I was lacking when I worked at a previous organization, and not because they weren't willing to help me in that space. I was just unaware of that type of impact and what that can actually do, and how much responsibility it takes to be a servant leader. So kudos to Jaytech for that. I know we'll probably dive into that here in just a little bit more in regards to what that EOS system was. But you and I talked just a little bit before we started this, that I'm hearing about the EOS system, or EOS, entrepreneurial operating system, being implemented in so many different organizations, and just watching the growth of those companies. And you talking about going from 10 to triple the size from implementation of that. It just goes to show how effective that is. And ultimately, like, if you haven't heard of EOS, in its shortest way of defining it is exactly what Adam had pretty much said, is setting your goals, defining how you're going to get there, and measuring it. And sometimes that includes your leaders in your team, as far as what does that organizational map look like, to having the right people in the right seats. You had mentioned, Adam, in your introduction, and I kind of want to come back to this, is that you recognize that somebody was better at what position you were in, and you stepped aside to help that person get into that spot. Um, I mean, if that's not servant leadership, I don't know what is, man. Do you feel like you got some of that? Like, is any of that natural for you, or do you feel like some of that was um, learned from the EOS, from that education that you got through the family owned business?
100% EOS. I'm not going to lie. I was very greedy about it, me and only me and me. Toby Keith, I want to talk about me. That was a whole lot of my mentality. I
RIP.
was, I was, I was raised on a farm. Very stubborn German kind of mentality of, you need to be the best of the best, and you need to focus on you, because it's a survivalist world, and just kind of that mentality. And I started out my career at that mentality, and it got me far, but it also got me in trouble at the same time. And I really was
Yeah,
affecting relationships
guilty.
around me, not really knowing that I was affecting relationships, even at home, or, with other family or friends or even coworkers. And, it also helps when you become a father and you have your first kid. And as you get older, you get a little softer, and you realize, hey, I don't have to be so tough. And maybe I'm working the angle from the wrong direction. They say you attract more flies or ants than any kind of insect with sugar, and being sweet versus not being so sweet. So I learned to kind of turn around and change that, and it's everybody has their days and their moments,
Oh,
but
of course.
being what I've learned recently is I'm a choleric temperate, or my temperament is choleric, so I'm very task oriented, and everything that comes with that. But it's a challenge, but it's also a challenge that gives me a reward because I don't get to go out in the field like I used to. The reward
Mm,
would be I would used to have these with relationships and trying to win over customers and users. And I don't deal with that anymore. I'm dealing with the leaders and the higher ups that aren't necessarily the boots in the ground in the mechanical room or dealing with the corporate style account. So it's a different world for me. So at that time, as there was that adjustment going on in my life, the adjustment was
mm.
I couldn't tackle things like I used to, in a mechanical room with a guy who has been there 40 years. You know that, Mitch, been there 40
Oh yeah.
years, and
Oh
he's
yeah.
in his bids and his camo hat, just like I'm still wearing from the old good old days. But I've learned that you don't necessarily need to come in so hot. Sometimes it's better just to close your mouth and listen. And I didn't do that very well back then. But
Mm,
it's
yeah.
still a task that I'm trying to acquire and still working on. But I've become very aware of it. And a lot of the things, it's not just EOS. Jaytech does a lot of things. They provided Dale Carnegie courses. We've done book clubs on reading on marketing and sales and the interaction. Like the revenue growth engine was a great one you and I've talked about.
Yeah.
It's all about how can we work together. And my leadership team, it's impenetrable. I've got wonderful people working for the company right now who support me and support each other and would give anything on someone else's bad day for them not to have a bad day. And that's servant leadership. And they do it just out of the heart, the goodness of their heart. Maybe we wouldn't have done that when we've met first day one, but we've
Sure.
grown together because of EOS, knowing that this is our process. This is what we follow. And in the case of me finding someone doing my job who could do my job better in that, the individual is an exemplary individual, has higher certifications than me. And I knew that my job was probably going to be on the chopping block as the company grew because my brain is only so beautiful of a mind and his is more beautiful, I guess we'd say. And he's
In
done a
certain
great job.
areas.
He's done a great job taking it over, but it's allowed me this opportunity to even get further into servant leadership versus
Yeah.
working on, some of the other technical tasks within the organization. I've become more of a people person, which is great. It's a great
Well,
feeling to
I
go
think
home with.
yeah, absolutely. And I think anybody like tuning into this, no matter what industry you are in, like it is never too late to learn something new and adapt because, I've been exactly where you were. I thought I had it all. Everybody should be talking to me. And until you start understanding, like sometimes you just got to shut up and listen, is the best way that you can actually help and serve somebody. So kudos to you for that, man. And yeah, anybody tuning in, I would just say, hey, open up a couple books and start reading on that leadership stuff because it'll help you redirect how you can be a better leader within your organization or just somebody coming up through the ranks. Like it's a great spot to be. So with that, Adam, let's kind of turn over to the next section of the show, which really talks about, what makes Jaytech Water Solutions more than a business.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of transition, that these kind of bleed in with one another. And it's that
Sure.
constant reminder of that servant leadership. It's everywhere within the organization. It wasn't always there, but it's come from the top down. And now that we see it from bottom up, from the front lines, they're all different levels within that organization. But with us doing EOS, the best thing is we put a process in place, right? It's like how a computer reads code. It's here's your process. You have to do this. And
Yep.
we went through and Jaytech allowed us to figure out what we were missing through EOS. It's hard to find out on your own what's missing if you don't have the whole picture. So we brought everybody together, formed that leadership team, put that full picture together. And obviously we built relationships amongst our team here. But it allowed us to identify that the processes that we had were weak at the time. That was the biggest thing. We realized that once we filled out our plan, we got our vision, what are we going to do for traction to get there in our 1, 3,
Mm,
10 year, we learned that processes were weak. So then we started addressing the processes. And then we started addressing the organizational chart, and then we put roles in there. And then we realized that some people were not the right people for the right seats. So then we had to address that. So one of the things about, them being more in a business is they teach you at Jaytech here that sometimes life is tough. It is a roller coaster. Sales is a roller coaster. I've told you, you're going to have your wins, you're going to have your losses. Life is a roller coaster. You're going to have wins and losses.
man.
The sooner you realize that every day is not going to be just a great cup of joe, that you have to learn to find a silver lining in something. Jaytech allows us to bring these issues from the front lines by bringing the way they run our culture in the same day, starting out with those meetings and moving it all the way up through the managers. And if they can't solve it, moving it up to the front, all the way up to the very top to leadership. And we're going to find out or address it and take care of it. And we try to get back, being a small company, we're very innovative, we're adaptive, we can move on the fly pretty quickly, and that's
Yeah.
how we serve our team, because they're dealing with problems that I'm not dealing with anymore, but I know what those problems are like, and we don't want any one of our employees to go home with a headache because we're asking them to do something to do. That's not building up our people, right? That doesn't make a good culture, doesn't build the company in the way that we
Yeah.
want it to do. So once we identified that we needed right people in the right seats, unfortunately, change had to happen. But now we're all rowing in the right direction, and we're hitting growth beyond growth that we've done before. And it's because we have everybody in line, and the ship's picking up speed. We don't need no wind blowing us. We've got oars carrying us along the way right now.
I like
But
that. This is not a wind powered ship.
yeah. Yeah, but the company is constantly looking for ways. Like I said, we do book clubs. We do all sorts of things where leadership tries to evaluate what can we do more for our people. We can't get out in the field and do the pinks and blues or install a pump, but what can I do in the process to help you get to there, or increase the odds of you making the sale, or increase the odds of you going home successful and not thinking about I have to come back the next day because I didn't plan. What can Jaytech do more for you on education wise? One of the best things that we also came out of this in EOS, we identified that education, doing water treatment is very unique, Mitch. You know that, just like going in and knowing how to size a cooling tower and knowing wet bulb, dry bulb, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
We have our own world where we live in steam or cooling or hot water, chilled water, process systems, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's for them, they wanted to find a way to help make everybody better. So every other week we have a class where we call it Jaytech University, and we build people up. It's an optional attendance. And I'll tell you what, we don't force people to do it besides the HNS, but it's almost 100% attendance because people have realized we are serving, that the leadership is building and putting all this together to do it. And Jaytech just allows me to collect a paycheck to help others. It's the best job ever, Mitch. So don't come after it. It's mine, but it's the best job ever. Is I get to help make people's lives, easier, help them go from A to B, C, D, wherever they want to go in their journey. And I'm improving processes. I'm meeting people. I'm working through, projects. I'm doing podcasts with you. I've got the best life here. And it's because Jaytech provided it for me and the things that they've done. And that's all goes back to the ownership all the way back when it started in 1977 with John Jewell. So, and the family still owns it, and it's still, we retain the family value. So that's been huge for the company is, as we grow, how do we still keep it a family? Everybody knows everybody's name. Nobody's just a face and a number here, and I've worked for that style company, and it's no fun. So the culture we've got is a very unique, deep culture that is very hard to find.
So I want to dive into the EOS side of things a little bit, and maybe just talk of maybe one of the biggest challenges, because I know like it's not easy to implement this, and it's going to rub certain people the wrong way, and sometimes as it should rub them the wrong way because they're being held accountable. What do you see like as you're trying to implement something like this? It can be a disruptor within an organization, and being able to say, "Hey, we did this, came through the other side, and we're stronger and better than ever." Like, what is maybe like the one or two like top things that you guys saw is like really challenging when change came or culture change? Like, can you hit on maybe one or two of those things?
Yeah, so I talked to it about a little bit is the right people in the right seats. Once you start getting to the point and you put your organizational chart together, EOS requires you to put 2 to 3 roles within that box. So then those are the 2 to 3 main roles that person's doing. If they're failing upon that, when we go through quarterly evaluations, which EOS holds you accountable, it's the rhythm part of it, right? Keeping the cadence. So it forced us to do things that we were uncomfortable with. The uncomfortability is gone now because we've done it enough, and we've
Yeah.
got people doing these so well. People are coming to meetings prepared, but it was brutal because it caused culture change in one of our divisions, and it was absolutely necessary and healthy because what we've got going on now, like I said, is better than what we ever had. But that was probably the toughest of anything, is because
Mm,
sometimes you have to say goodbye to friends, or friends have to say goodbye to you because they don't want to be held accountable, or they don't want to do the roles that we're paying them to do. And it's rough at first. It plays
yeah.
really hard on you, but then you look back at the silver lining when you found the replacement and you realize, wow, this person's cranking out 140% capacity of the last person, and this new person still has 20% of his week free.
Left.
I feel like the trade-off was worth, the couple heartstrings that were pulled, but the emotional parts behind it does make it tough, because sometimes, even as, the owner and watching ownership, sometimes these choices are not easy, and it goes against what maybe they innately feel in their heart or have known before, but we have to make changes to be able to grow. One of my favorite sayings, is one of an old timer saying I always say is, the only change I like comes in a round metallic form. That was the old Adam before EOS. The new Adam in EOS realizes that change can happen. Sometimes it's extremely painful to work through, but you have a team. And that's what supports you. Is when you do this, you've already set your team of who's going to support you and lead you through there. Second part of it was probably getting all the way down to the lowest level within the organization, of teams, going from leadership to the managers, because we meet with the managers. Some of us from leadership meet with managers, but the managers are meeting on a weekly cadence as well, and quarterly and annually and such, with the actual sales reps, and they're talking to them first thing Monday morning. So getting EOS all the way down from culture, from leadership, skipping down 2 tiers and getting everybody on that same page, that's a struggle. I made a mistake when getting into EOS and reading the traction book. This one right here is my first book. It's got a lot of big words. They don't make it as easy.
I got you covered too.
As easy as it possibly could be. But, it really clicked when I read the easier one, which I read them in reverse, which was, what the heck is EOS? Our company has gone as so far as to, as part of a new employee within our organization, you get a copy of it, because it means so much to our culture, to make sure that everybody is aware that, hey, we run on this program. This is how we survive. This is how we are hitting the numbers we are. And this is how we could afford to add you to our team as a new employee and increase our headcount, because we followed these steps. Would you love to continue learning more? Because the faster you learn, the faster gears start spinning, and your drag car can start running down the strip. So absolutely. EOS has been such a massive change for the organization, because I've seen light bulbs go off, and I've seen light bulbs come in that just go off or turn on, and they're bright as can be, which, that's another value that we brought up, which is bright eyes, that observable energy, someone who's just excited to get up and do this. But that allowed us to identify what we want and then where we were lacking. So it comes and goes. Once you get through the really tough parts, and you're like, that energy it takes to get up that hill right on the roller coaster, and you get to throw your hands up as you're coming down the Screaming Eagle, and you're going, that's it's worth the feeling. And then you go to another hill, and you're like, all right, I'm empowered. I'm so boosted up that I just got this massive project done. I'm going to go talk to my boss and then let him know what great things our teams did. And then I say, what else can we do? What can we do next? We don't just stop there. It just allows it. And Mitch, one of the best things in the world that I love seeing is my owner, and the excitement on his eyes when, at the end of the year, when I can pull a report and look at all the things that we've identified, discussed, and solved in every department level. Wow. So that's been a struggle, getting to that point, getting everybody to understand headlines and the importance of why we want to hear headlines, or why we assign to-dos, because it's going to remind you every day, hey, you told someone you're going to do this, so you got to do it. Well, now I got an issue, I can't get it done. So we bring it back up and we ask for help. So it's been great. But it takes also a long time to understand how to hold yourself accountable. What rocks are really good rocks? Are they specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely? You have to meet all 5 of those to make sure you have a good rock, then that can hold yourself accountable to get your traction. So it just takes a lot of time. It's a lot of information to absorb.
Well, I've had a lot of conversations with companies that have implemented it, and they've been on this show because of that. So I think just the implementation of EOS, not just saying you want to do EOS, but going through that has something to show for being more than a business right then and there. So let's transition over to you, Adam, because we're getting near the end of the show here. But what motivates you? You even talked about, like, some days they're not just the perfect cup of Joe. Some days you walk in and you got 20% of yourself to give. I've been fighting COVID and strep throat this week at the same time. I have not been the best, but I still like to show up for the team that I get to serve and blessed to serve. So what continues to make you to show up, continue to serve the people that you're blessed to serve and the company you get to work with?
Well, I guess I have to retract my statement. I don't have a job. I really feel like this is a hobby. I love it so much. And if I can do a hobby for a living, I'm going to wake up every day and look at my wife and say, how fast can we get the kids off? Because I'm ready to go play. It's really what it feels like. And I know my definition of a hobby is different than everybody else's. And so fun, but I really enjoy what I do because I was provided, something here to make a career out of it. Some people can make a job out of it because it's not right for them, or they're not right for it. But I found a career. I found something that empowers me, motivates me, provides me satisfaction because there's a
Mm,
lot of stuff to do. And the day that I got hired, the guy who was interviewing me at the time asked me, "What do you want out of this?" I said, "My mind is a sponge. Don't let it dry out because it can't absorb anything." I go, "I need to have a job that constantly is letting me learn, letting me grow, letting me become better because I'm just high. I'm sure I'm ADD, but I need that kind of,
sure.
task,
No.
that satisfaction constantly keeping me going." But my dad made me a heavy motivator and working hard, being the meanest bulldog in the junkyard, standing, the
Go.
tallest in the lineup against my competitors. But one of the other things is, I wake up every single day. And sometimes I think about, do I have to leave so fast? And that because I've got my girls. I've got three daughters.
Yeah.
I've got a
Yeah.
beautiful wife. So I have four lovely women in my life. And I wake up every day thinking I want to do as much as I can and show them good values and hard work, just like I was shown, but
Yep.
also be able to come back home happy, and be able to turn the work light off and be able to focus on them. So that, to me, family life, and again, working for a company that's a family ran company, they understand that
Yep.
family absolutely comes first in everybody's life, right? We do everything we
Oh
can
man.
for our family and our friends, and we hold a lot of friends close enough to us that we consider them family. But
Absolutely.
it's definitely transitioned from being the single guy and, I got to impress dad and be the best. And now and wake up every day and wake up earlier than him and try to make more than him and just make him proud. And once you hear that goes away as a guy. And then now I'm working for the lovely ladies in my life. That's who I'm working hard for.
Well,
They empower me.
I've experienced that same transition, and I used to give everything I could to the job and have nothing left to give
Yep.
to my wife and my three kiddos as well. And I think having an organization that fully understands that and wants you to go home and be the best father that you can be and supports that, because if you don't go home and you're not arguing with your spouse or exhausted or yelling at your kids when you know you shouldn't have, that's only going to trickle back into the workplace the next day. So if you can leave
Yep.
there, get home happy, and do that, I appreciate you sharing that component of what continues to motivate you is the fact
Yep.
that this organization allows me to be a good father and a good husband. Um, yeah, you got my vote on that one,
I'm
man. So
trying.
I got you on that. All right, man. We have really reached the end of the show here. I want to give a quick shout out to Tracy. She's tuning in Kansas City from LinkedIn. And Kevin is coming in from St. Louis. I'm guessing you maybe know Kevin because I don't have a lot of people in the St. Louis area. So thank you so much for tuning in to hear more about Jaytech and what Adam is doing over there, and just the business that it is. Adam, one of the things that my wife and I want to do through this show is to show our own gratitude and appreciation for you coming on the show. And we do that by allowing you to gift a meal to somebody that you think is deserving of that meal, whether they are going through life's worst time or maybe a time of celebration, or kudos to you for the work that you've done. You have anybody in mind, and maybe tell us a little bit why you think they might be a good fit?
I actually do. So we have an award within our organization each year that is an EOS award, a traction award, for who got a grip that year. And I would like to select that person as my winner, but not just because of that. This person is also the person who reintroduced me back to you, who started watching this before I did and brought me into it. And she's one heck of a worker, Mitch. Let me tell you, she
Yes.
works late into the night, early in the morning. So
Woo.
I'd like her to focus on a little bit more time with her family, especially since she recently got married. So maybe
Right.
for working so hard, slow down, Tracy Weigel. You're going to get the box here from Mitch. So that way, a little celebration after just getting recently married and having the honeymoon. Come home and have a nice evening with the family. You don't need to work for us that night.
That's fantastic. Well, yeah, we'll make sure we try to make extra time so that she doesn't have to sit in the kitchen and cook. So we'll make sure she takes that time to hang out with her new husband,
Perfect.
instead of opening up the laptop. So I'll make sure to include that inside the box when she opens that. Awesome, man. Adam, real quick, what's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you when they want to talk to you or learn more about JTech?
Yeah, feel free. You can reach out to me at any time. My email is acampo, which is a campo, and that's at jtech.com, Jaytech. And feel free to call me. Number's 314-422-8182.
Awesome. Hey, Adam, I can't thank you enough for coming on this show, talking a lot about what makes JTech more than a business. I just wish you the best as you continue to go in your hobby, and build this business even bigger and better in what it is. And I just can't thank you enough for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate that.
Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate the platform to speak about EOS and with Jaytech. It was wonderful, and I look forward to being on here again in the future.
Let's do it. All right. I love to hear that. So anybody that is tuning in, we will be back next Thursday. We're going to have Michael Smith with 40M Partners coming on. Make sure you find that LinkedIn event on my page or the company page, but we will be back at that time. So until then, make sure you are out there and continue to strengthen those relationships, because they will get you further than you ever may believe. So with that, Adam, we are out, man. Take care.
Have a good night, everyone.